had this scheduled for 6 o'clock, but I had some technical problems. I'm just excited today to do this. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I'm really excited about hitting 1,000 subscribers. It's kind of a crazy moment. I was on vacation and not at home at the time, sitting out there thinking, worried about my fish, and hoping they're all right. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it was just kind of a crazy moment when I saw that. I got on there and was very, very surprised. I don't know. I can't really describe that feeling. It was something that I didn't expect to happen that soon. I think there's a lot of people. I looked it up. Only 6% of channels get to that point. So, um, that's pretty incredible. I really just started this thing last September. I made a video the September before that, but it was a year before I did anything else. But I started this thing last September, just kind of thinking, I just kind of wanted to share what I was building here, and it's a lot. It's been a lot of work, and I had a few people come over to the house and see it, and I just thought, this is something that is very has been a lot of work and kind of difficult to do, and it seemed kind of a shame that very few people had seen it. So I just decided, I'm just going to start posting some videos, and there wasn't much to them. It just literally me pointing a camera at the tank and showing it. So uh, I I just kind of kept going. It's kind of my personality. I'm gonna put this camera over here. Actually, sorry for the movement. But I just kind of kept going, thinking, we'll see where this goes, and a little sideways. Um, and I didn't really expect it to get as far as it did. So, but I kind of got into it. I really enjoyed just coming up with ideas and stuff to talk about, and the ideas just kind of kept coming to me. So I just kept making videos, but I never really expected it to get as far as it did. I thought that there weren't that many people out there interested, but it's been quite a cool process. But once I hit that 1K, it was a little confusing because I was like, what do I do now? I didn't really think I'd get this far. So what's the next goal? So I don't know. Honestly, I'm sitting here thinking a lot about what do I do next? Where do I go from here? And I'm not really the kind of person that wants to make $1 million doing this. I feel like I read a lot of forums and watch a lot of videos about people that go into YouTube, and the very common thing is that people want to make money. And I guess that's fine. I mean, I don't care about that. But that if I wanted to make money, then I probably wouldn't spend this much money on fish tanks or fish. I know there's a lot of you that probably feel that. It's you spend $1 million to gain $10, not a million, but you know what I mean. You spend a bunch of money just to get onto YouTube and do all that work, and it's not really worth it financially. I mean, I guess if you hit like 100,000, 200,000 subscribers, maybe, but honestly, I don't think that is very likely for most people, and especially for me, because I don't really know if that's really what I want. But I do love the community, and mostly I just love sharing. And also, there's also some things that I just don't like in the space that kind of bother me. And so sometimes I just think, I kind of want to come up with something different. I've written stuff down, like kind of a journaling process, like, what am I doing here? What's the goal? And I've come out with a lot of these like philosophical videos lately, and so I've kind of thought a little pretty deeply about it. And the one of the things that I wrote down was that it's not really a tribe that I want to make. It's kind of more of an anti-tribe. I don't know if that makes sense, but one of the things that frustrates me is that there's just so many people out there that think that you got to do it one way or the other. If you watched my very recent video, my fish room tour, my uncle's fish room, I learned a lot from that. Just being there with him, had a lot of fun hanging out with him, but also just his stuff was so different than mine. And I talked to him a lot about it because he started fish keeping in the age of there was no internet, and you just kind of did stuff and you saw what worked. He told me some crazy stories about when he started in the 80s. He just brought fish home and he couldn't figure out, hey, thanks, Aussie Aquatic. Thanks for stepping on. That's awesome. Yeah, it is. Huge step. I'm really excited about it. But um, so yeah, he started bringing fish home, and he didn't even know what cycling a tank was. He just kind of set up his tanks and threw the fish in there. And he said he got so confused because they moved houses, and he brought the fish with him. And he brought the substrate and the decoration and stuff, but he dumped them all in, put the fish in, filled it up. He didn't realize that he had kind of cleaned some of the stuff off in the process, or it had dried out, and the fish died because the tank wasn't cycled, and he didn't realize he had to do that. And this is a long time ago. He obviously knows a lot better since. But just thinking about how that must have been to just not have the internet like constantly bombarding you with stuff and telling you what all the rules are. And there's pros and cons to that. Like, I think the rules are good. It's nice to have all the information, but what was so eye-opening to me while I was there looking at his tanks is how many of those rules that I had learned from the internet that I was breaking, or that he was breaking, and yet his fish were growing faster than mine. They seemed more healthy than mine. They were just more vibrant, more colorful and everything. And I just, I was just sitting there. It was kind of eye-opening because it just made me think, like, do I need these rules? Or how many of these rules do I need? And I think that's kind of a moment in fish keeping, is when you start to break the rules. And you learn what rules you have to keep and what rules you can't. And I've already started doing that. I've already started breaking the rules, in my own way. Some things just moving stuff around, thinking, do I really need this and need that? But it was just a big experience for me, because I just saw so many things that he was not doing or doing that, you know, worked just fine for him, and made me question a lot of things that I do. But, and the reason I bring that up is because talking about like what I want to do going forward is, I hate that tribalism. I don't know if anybody else gets tired of it. And I wish I could say it was just tribalism in fish keeping, but I mean, it's everywhere. Like, it's the entire world right now. It says everybody has to have a tribe, and you have to like stick with your tribe. And it really just frustrates me, because I think we have so much to learn from each other in so many ways of things that we could do. And I think that rule breaking is important, because it's what makes us all better at something. But you're never going to figure out what rules you can break if the only thing you're doing is trying to fit into the tribe that you're in, because you're not going to listen to people. You just stop listening. You just move into this mentality of, well, I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing around me. And even if there's something you don't necessarily agree with, you just do it anyway. And I hate that. And I feel like, this isn't my only hobby. I've talked about this before. I have my bees that I keep, and woodworking and guitars. I have way too many hobbies, as you might have already surmised. But every single one of them, I watch YouTube videos, and I'm in different communities, and they all have the same problem. They all have the absolutely can'ts and the absolutely musts. And it's so frustrating to me. And so, like I said, if anything, I can think about like what I would love to build with something like this. And if there's something to motivate me, because I already established, I don't know if I'm really motivated enough by money. Otherwise, I wouldn't spend this much money to make money. But the thing that does motivate me is the idea that like we could have a cooler community, of a community that just listens to each other more. And I'm not saying it's easy, because I do it too. I mean, even when I was looking at my uncle's tanks, there were just things I was like, you can't do that. But I kept quiet and listened, and then realized, no, that voice is wrong. You absolutely can do this stuff. So, thinking about where I'd love to go going forward, that's my ice in my mouth, is I would love to build a community like that. And I would love to explore that through videos and with you guys. I just want to find people that have similar desires to just kind of have a community that's more of an anti-tribe than a tribe, kind of more of a group of people that are willing to find people that do it completely different than them and build on that. I mean, that just to me sounds so much more gratifying than coming up with I'm not going to name a movement, but a new movement that everybody does things exactly like me. Um, the problem that I see is that, not, I mean, I don't want to say like you don't get ahead unless you're controversial, but there's a lot of controversies and a lot of these tribes that they help build each other. Let's just put it that way. You join the tribe, everybody feeds off of each other and gives each other, attention in maybe not so good ways, and then attacking the other tribe. It's like you're starting your own little war, and you jump into a camp, and so each side has to fight the other one, and so you just attract more members. Different rules for. Oh. Sorry, just reading Aussie Aquatic. I think there are different rules for predator versus prey because fish certainly have both groups to work with, either separately or together. You're talking about like keeping the fish together. There's still rules. Like, I'm not trying to say I want to create a community that never follows the rules. I think, but there's room for healthy discussion. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. There certainly are things that you should do no matter what. But I think we just get caught up in our battles, and that's all I wanted to point out. I mean, it's not that I want to start, because I mean, it does sound oddly similar to some of these groups. Like, they break all the rules and then they create a tribe of rule breakers, and it attracts people in that way. And that's still not quite what I'm getting at. I want something that you can bring people together, and that's all. And I know that that's probably puts me at a little bit of a disadvantage, but I still kind of want to explore it. I just want a positive voice and things that I can, focus on and in a positive way, and then hopefully keep some of the negativity at bay. I'm never gonna fully accomplish that. I understand. Like, you're always gonna have negativity. It's just part of the world we live in today. But that's kind of what I'm thinking about going forward, what I would like to accomplish, because I need something to work towards. Aussie Aquatics, I know you've got a channel that I've watched, and there's a lot of fish keepers that I know I watch their channels and they watch mine, and you guys know, like, it's a lot of work. It's so funny when I hear people say, oh, I want to get to 1,000 subscribers and get monetized and make all this money. I'm like, you have never worked so hard for so little, because it is a ton of work. Just coming up with ideas, the filming, the editing, just the whole process is it's crazy. And if you don't love it, I mean, I don't think I would have lasted a week if I wouldn't have just really enjoyed doing it. So, I feel like, yeah, maybe in a few years, I guess if my goal was just to make money and get to 50, 100,000 subscribers, then maybe I could do that. But, and then maybe it would pay off. Or, of course, there's the sponsorships, and I've talked about that before too much. But more money delivering pizzas. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I could probably panhandle for more money than this. Yeah, so definitely not the kind of thing you do for money. So for me, it's just been trying to find something I can be passionate about, because I only survive on passion, and I only build all of this for passion. And that, I was just so I just got back from vacation. I was gone for days. I do want to talk a little bit in this live stream about what I did to feed my fish while I was gone. And I did kind of come up with a little bit of a system that worked really well. So, going to mention that. The other funny thing is that it is 6 p.m. Aussie Aquatics, are you in Australia? I don't even know what time it is there. It is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern United States. I set up this live stream, and I had this whole plan to go live for this. I was on vacation when I hit 1K, and I almost did it there, but I didn't have my setup. I didn't have anything with me, not everything. And it was just there. I was in a house with early morning. Gotcha. I was in a house with a bunch of kids, and I was like, I don't think I can go live here. This is going to be easy. If I did, it would have been really quick. But so I made this plan. I was like, I'm going to go home, and I'll go live when I get home on the day after I get back, which, by the way, if I look tired, I'm exhausted. I need a vacation from my vacation. But so I set up the live stream in the airport, and I forgot that I was 2 hours away from here. So, or not 2 hours away, a 2 hour time difference from where I am right now. And I set it up for 4 p.m., which is when I wanted to go live, and then got here and realized it was scheduled for 6, which I say that because the reason I did 4 o'clock is because I knew I would kind of have the house to myself. There's a slight chance one of my kids might run in, which is fine. I don't care. But in fact, I kind of hope my daughter does. She's super cute. She will definitely bring a smile to everybody's face. But so anyway, it was just funny. I had planned all this and I didn't take into account the time change. But I got home and I spent like all morning doing a week's worth of tank maintenance. I like to tell everybody that this thing runs itself until I'm gone for a week and come home and realize that little 5 to 10 minute thing that I do each day where I walk past each tank and do something little, not including the feeding time, but just the, oh, this one gets algae. So I always have one planted tank that always pick a little bit of algae out. When you come home after a week, it's like, oh gosh, this stuff actually does take time, because I got to do a whole week's worth of maintenance all at once. So I spent the better part of the morning doing that, just cleaning up stuff. I did have one tank that had just a small pleco that was in there that died. I'm not sure when it died. It looked like it had died before I left. Had some coolie loaches in there that looked like it had gotten to it. But it wasn't a big enough pleco to cause a big enough problem in the tank. That was my number one fear, is if something dies, you know how it goes. If something dies, you don't catch it, come back a week later, everything in the tank is dead because it's just disgusting and nasty. Luckily, it's a very small pleco in a 40-gallon tank. It's this, go over my shoulder, that tank right there. But luckily, the only negative thing is the tank is just covered with green hair algae. So yeah, I'm gonna have to clean that out. But honestly, out of all the things that could have gone wrong, I'll take that. I mean, that happens sometimes anyway while I'm here, but a little bit of a bummer, but I'm all right. But so I debated between a few different things of what I could do while I was gone to feed the fish. Now, a lot of these fish are bigger and probably could have survived. It was 6 days. I mean, they could have. This discus tank has an automatic feeder, which they exclusively got fed by the automatic feeder. So that one was fine. I debated between, do I pay somebody to come over and feed the fish, or do I buy a bunch of auto feeders and just pick the tanks that need feeding and that are going to die and feed those ones, and then just let everybody else, just hang out and they'll be okay. But I decided, I was like, I'd rather just have them be fed like normal. But of course, I've heard the horror stories. People say they get a non-fish keeper to come over and feed your fish. And I mean, I did not want that to happen. People come over, there's just food all over the bottom of the tank and everything's dead. And so I was trying to decide how to do that. Had some fish keeper friends. Yes, the driftwood behind me, did I find it? Yes, I did. It came out of a river close nearby. The moment when I found it was glorious. I was so excited when I saw it sticking out and pulled it out, and I was like, I know where this is going. Yeah, I love that driftwood. But anyway, so I debated, like, do I get a more experienced fish keeper friend to come over and do it? But I don't know, it was going to be a lot of work. So I decided, this is what I did. I just took large Ziploc bags. This is the moment when you realize you have too many tanks. I put numbers on the Ziploc bags. I numbered each tank with a dry erase marker. And then I taped the bags up high, because I've actually done a variation of this in the past, but I have a cat. And the last time I did it, the cat had a great time. The first day the person showed up to feed the fish, he said, hey, all I found was ripped up bags on the floor with fish food all over the place. And I was like, darn it, well, that didn't work. So this was a little different. I kept the bags up high, taped them to the top of the tanks, numbered the bags, numbered the tanks. I hadn't counted my tanks in a while. I think I have 40 of them right now. Although today, I mean, I'll update you guys. I guess I can tell you, I just moved a ton of fish. This one right over my shoulder. I had a bunch of quarantine tanks with fish for this one, and I didn't want to move them before I left because I just didn't want to have any problems. So I was super excited to come home and set up this one. This one is one that I tore down recently, and it was just looking like nothing. But now I basically just shut down a bunch of tanks. So I say 40, but I have about, as of today, like 6 of those are now empty. So, and a bunch of those went into here. Some of them went into other tanks. So, but when you're setting this up, when I'm doing the Ziploc bags, I'm numbering it. I mean, it took me, oh my gosh, it was my daughter and I sat down. We're like filling bags of fish food, and it took me like 2 hours fast, like, because actually for some dumb reason I decided to do this the morning we had to go to the airport, and I don't know why I did that. So as I started doing it, I'm like, this is gonna take a while. So I got my daughter, and we're both like, we had this assembly line going. I'm filling bags and handing them over to her. But so I took a big Ziploc bag, put the numbers on it, taped it to the tank, took little Ziploc bags, 1 bag for each day. So it was a pretty simple system. And then I had somebody who was an adult who could understand instructions very well. A young adult, that a college student, actually, somebody that needed money. So I was like, well, I'm going to pay you the money that I would have bought the auto feeders, and just paid somebody, made sure they knew this is very important to me. I really don't want these fish to die. Gave them very clear instructions, left the bags out with the food, told them specific things. Like I actually had the generator. Oh, I got to unplug that. I had it plugged in, hooked up, ready to go in case something happened. The week before we left, I lost power 3 times. I was like, oh my gosh, please do not let this happen while I'm gone. I had a plan for somebody to come over and turn on the generator if something happened. I have a battery backup system for all the air stones and all the tanks. So and it's a 135 milliamp hour battery. So I have backup plans. I should be fine for a day and a half without power. And if you're wondering about the power thing, I live in the middle of the woods, in the mountains, and I just lose power a lot. It's kind of a bummer. The trade-off is I have awesome well water. So I don't know if I could ever leave, but the power situation bothers me. And the reason I lost power 3 times, one time was legit, like I lost power. The other 2 times, this was crazy. The power company was trimming the trees with a helicopter in a spinning blade. They didn't tell me they were doing this, and so I wasn't even home. My wife looks outside, and there's 7 large round spinning blades hanging from a helicopter flying through my front yard. I don't know how they could manage to not tell me that, but anyway, so they shut off the power while they were doing that, and I was just hoping they wouldn't do it the week I was gone. Everything down here should come back on timer wise if the power goes out, with the exception of this tank and a few others that have some fluval lights. And yeah, I know, Matthew, it's crazy. But the fluval lights are, they're Bluetooth, so there wasn't any way for them to come back on if they got shut off. So anyway, so the whole system that I had, everything worked out fine. Fish keeping is like the anti-vacation. I mean, I always feel nervous going out of town. Luckily, I don't leave very often, or at least we don't all leave very often. So there's always somebody here to feed the fish. But if you're ever going out of town, that worked great. Just the baggies taped to the front of the tank, and then 1 little bag per day of fish food worked fine. I think that's probably the system that I will use in the future. If anybody else, let me know. Like, have you, left on vacation? Have you had anything like that before? Any other system that works? Maybe there's one better than mine. This is really only my 2nd extended vacation, so this was a better variation. The last time, like I said, didn't go as well, and I ended up having to just tell them to feed the tank anyway. Do you not feed your fish at all, Matthew? I guess I'm not sure who else here. I gotta figure out how to do live streams better where I can actually see who's here. I know I've watched a lot of videos that say they don't need to feed fish. I mean, that these like discus big fish, I know they don't really need food every single day. But maybe I'm just a little paranoid to do that. One of my big tanks, the one right there over my shoulders with my big cichlids, I have some Buenos Aires tetras that they're big enough, but I feel like if I was gone for 6 days, they would start to look like food. So that one makes me nervous. That's probably the only tank I think that has, I mean, I guess some other tanks where I have some smaller fish that maybe could turn into food if I didn't have them fed every day, but I don't know. So that was the vacation situation. Just learned a lot while I was out there, and I also have some videos that I've been working on. One really awesome aquarium store tour. Uh, Medium-sized zucchini in my tank as a multi-day feeder block. Interesting. So is that for cichlids and for everything? I mean, I know I've seen them all pick. I've done that. I've fed zucchini before, and I've seen them all pick at it. But yeah, that's an interesting idea. Huh. I'm just curious if that's for a specific type of fish or if that's for all of them. Interesting. I lost my train of thought now. But yeah, so the video that, but I toured this really awesome fish store. I'm really excited about that one. That's cool. That's a good idea. Maybe I'll try that one in the future. Maybe if I do a shorter trip. Maybe if I'm, or maybe I'll do it while I'm at home, just so I can see what they do. That's a good idea. Medium-sized zucchini. Do you weigh it down with like a fork or something? Do you do what? I mean, that's how I always did it for my plecos that I was growing out. I have to weigh it down with something. I'm assuming you have to do that. You probably don't just drop it right into the tank, right? Because they kind of float. Or I guess if you blanch it, it'll sink. Anyway, that's an interesting idea. But yeah, so the when I was on vacation, I wanted to go to this fish store, and I surprised my wife because I still ended up, I was 1,800 miles away from my house, and I still ended up buying fish. I don't know. That's probably how you know you have a problem. You go on vacation, you go to a fish store, and I still brought home fish. I didn't bring them home, but I found some fish that I was looking for in the store, and I ordered them. I picked them out, which was cool, and I said, "Can you ship me those?" And they're coming next week. So otherwise, I'd probably have the video out today for that, but I want to include the fish that I got on there. But yeah, there's some pretty awesome rare fish. I'm excited to kind of show people that I saw while I was gone. Wasn't a fish keeping vacation, but I find ways to turn them all into, whoa, somebody just jumped. Turn everything, go do something fish keeping on each vacation. There's a guy that I know who lives here locally who he's actually a YouTuber. He's got like 2 million subscribers. But his dad's a fish keeper, and he is not, because he said every vacation they went on turned into a fish keeping vacation. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to ruin that for my kids. But you know, when I told him I had a fish keeping channel, he was like, he just like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that. So I'm like, oh, I guess it doesn't always pass from one generation to the next. But so anyway, yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I want to talk about. I made a list. I'm looking at my list here. Yeah, I'm just focusing on some of those videos for the future. A lot of fish tubers that I've seen that, you know, they run out of stuff to talk about. Aussie Aquatics, you've been around for a while. How do you keep coming up with ideas? I just see so many channels, and I've had them before. I watched one the other day of a guy that I've always loved watching, and he had just kind of stopped posting, and then he made a video and he basically said, I just ran out of stuff to talk about. I don't know. It's easy to get burnout, and I feel like this stuff, you know, it takes so much. It doesn't take a lot of work, not for me. I mean, I feel you know, I always say that, and I never really add up how much time I spend down here. I feel like it doesn't. I have some good systems in place, but I think the part that's a little draining is just the day in and day out stuff. How do you keep, you know, coming up with new stuff? I get really anxious as far as my tank setups go. So for example, I mean, the discus tank is a perfect example. And I haven't made a video on this yet. I have a short that I made, you know, I just realized it's a member only short, but I only have one member, and that's Jody P. So I just make shorts for her sometimes. But I made a short not that long ago of this tank showing adding the angels to this tank, as well as these cardinal tetras right there. And my plan was to never really not add anything to this discus tank for a while. I wanted to just let the discus get really big. I didn't even have the root structure in here for the longest time either, because I wanted the discus to really get big, and so I have the automatic water change every day, and but I mean they're a decent size, so like I didn't add them any fish in there when they were babies. They've been in there for over 6 months, and they've grown pretty good. But I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm tired of looking at a bare tank. My plan was always to get them to get bigger and then eventually add more stuff to the aquascape, some sand, and then obviously I got the root structure in there. But finally, I was like, I found these angels at a local store, and they're wild caught. They're from, I think it said River Momon, Momon. They're just a wild caught fish, and they're a really awesome contrast to the discus because they're very natural colors. They're super. They're not like strong coloration like the discus or obviously a bred strain. Lots of different kinds in there, but I just love the way they look. It's really cool. So I added them in there. I added the cardinal tetras because I had another tank that I didn't know what to do with those cardinal tetras, and I was going to move stuff around. It was like cardinal tetras and angels. The only thing I can't decide is like I don't want to go too far overboard. Is I have a tank right below here that has about, well, I bought 50 rummy nose tetras. I think I've only ever seen 2 die out of the 50, which is amazing. I mean, usually you get that many fish. So they came from the wet spot. I love the wet spot. I always get really healthy fish from them. Actually, the cardinals did too. I know a lot of people have problems with cardinals, but the fish I get from them, for some reason, they do way better than all the other fish, and they're just really high quality. So, but I'm thinking of bringing them up. I don't know if it's going to be too much, or if it's going to, because I did notice even when I came home from my vacation, this tank never has any algae growing on it because it has daily water changes, and there's just never any nitrates. And I tested it today. I tested everything when I got home, and there are still 0 nitrates in there. But for the first time ever, I saw a little dusting of brown algae on stuff, and I was like, oh man. So now I'm kind of like, oh, I don't want to overload the tank and then actually have to do that much work with it, because I think it would probably be fine as far as adding the rummy nose, and it would look awesome. I mean, they're so cool, and just to add a lot of activity. I think it would also help these cardinal tetras because I don't know if you can watch them and see them, but they're a little skittish. They always stay in their own little group, and not that I'm surprised by that, but they seem to hide a little bit. So I'm wondering, add all the rummy nose tetras, and they're just constantly going back and forth. So that might actually kind of help them feel better. But then I gotta maybe clean out brown algae from that tank. I gotta actually scrape glass sometimes, because that's the other part about it, is that this light, because actually I do like 4 feedings a day on this tank, the light stays on a lot longer than all my other tanks. So it's a prime candidate for algae growth compared to all my other tanks that I have on shortened. Like this is my flower horn. That one only stays on for like 4 hours a day, just because I got tired of cleaning algae out of it, and that guy wouldn't let me put anything in there. So although there is some pothos coming out of the top, so that helps. But anyway, so yeah, maybe I'm just a little bit lazy. So if I add all those fish, but it would look so cool. I think I'm probably going to do it. I'm going to break down and do it eventually anyway. But I was going somewhere with that. I was using that to point out that sometimes I just get impatient, and wow, that was a huge tangent. We're circling back now, but sometimes I get impatient, and I think that's what sometimes people feel is like, you set up your tank, you get, it's running for like 6 months, and then you just get antsy, and you're like, I got to change something. This is part of multiple tank syndrome, which I have a whole outline right now. I'm going to make a video on soon. I'm working on it. I got to come up with some good stuff, but multiple tank syndrome is it's a joke. Like, I know it's a joke. It's something people say as a punchline, but it's just such a real thing. And there are, I feel like, downsides to it. And there's good things. I've learned a lot of good things and a lot of positive things from having multiple tanks, but there are definitely some negative things to it. So I kind of want to make a video exploring that a little bit. There's a lot of people I feel like in the fish tube community that kind of touch on mental health stuff, but they never really, go deep into it. My only problem is that I'm not a mental health professional, so I would just be speaking from my own, perspective on it. So I wish I could find like an actual mental health professional who's a fish keeper who could who I could collaborate with and talk to. Maybe they would just let me pay them for like an online live stream therapy session. I'm just kidding. Um, but it really does, I feel like, play a role in so much of this. We just get bored. There's just some people that I know that have gotten into this hobby, and within 6 months they're they're out of it, and they're trying to get rid of all their fish online on Facebook. They're begging people to take their fish. I've got people that are just reaching out to me. Can you take my fish? I don't want them anymore. I'm like, what happened? Like 6 months ago, you wanted all my fish. Um, and now you're getting rid of everything. But so there's just, and the unfortunate part of that is that the fish kind of suffer a little bit, I mean, um, I feel like if we did that with cats and dogs, it would be a huge deal if 6 months after you got I mean, some people do, but if you got a new cat every 6 months and then you got 50 cats and then you were like begging people to take your cats or dogs or whatever it is, I mean, that wouldn't be like socially acceptable, culturally acceptable. So, but we have a lot of people that do that with fish keeping. And so there's definitely some negative sides to that. So I don't know. I admire people that do this for 20, 30 years. I hope I can. I worry about that sometimes with the amount of fish that I have. Like, am I going to be able to keep these for the length that they live? Luckily, unluckily, I was going to say luckily they don't live that long, but that's a weird thing to say. Getting pets for Christmas is a thing. Yeah. Or my kids, they went to a little what was it? It was like a little fair thing, and they ended up with some feeder goldfish. One of them's still alive. It lives outside on my front porch. The other ones were not very healthy, and they died pretty quickly. But one of them it's about that big. It's pretty good size. Yeah. So, but yeah, we don't really treat our animals that well. But my 40-year therapy, yeah. Yeah, and I just think that's fascinating because it really can be therapy, but you have to have the right mindset about it. If you don't, if you don't see them the way that you can't be selfish about it. Like, they're your therapy, but they're also a living animal. So there's two sides of that. I see both, and I see advantages to both. But I don't know, just an interesting topic, interesting conversation that I have been thinking a lot about lately, and that I kind of want to explore in some videos and just see what other people's takes are on it, like how people have reconciled those two points, because it's difficult. I struggle with it. Something that I've asked myself is, what if I had to move tomorrow? What would I do? Like, what if I had to move across the country? And the answer I've always thought is, well, I just go on Facebook Marketplace and or whatever local thing, and local fish club, send out messages. Does anybody want 2 tanks? Helps longevity. And I think that one day I'm gonna get to just 2 tanks. I'm still in my the channel's called Fwish List because I literally have. I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm looking at the note that I started 3 years ago that I titled Fwish List, because there were too many fish and I wanted to keep so many of them, and so I literally started making a list of all the ones that I wanted to keep. And so I'm susceptible to that too. But I think one day I'll probably shrink it down to a couple tanks. I'll do like just a couple dream tanks, like maybe I don't know what it'll be. I think one of them is going to look a lot like this, or I'm going to do something like a puffer, just like a big Mabu puffer or something like that. But we'll see. But yeah, like, what would happen if I moved? I would just rehome the fish, right? I mean, I don't. You guys tell me, like, what's your plan? Like, if you ever had to get rid of fish, would you feel guilty about it? Would you feel like it was okay? Because I kind of I struggle with that a little bit. Like, is this a good thing that my plan is to just like put a post out on Facebook and hope somebody comes by and picks them up, and maybe they won't want all of them. And then what do I do? And then I guess I take them to the fish store. But I just feel like you're kind of breaking that stewardship. When you buy a fish, you say, I'm going to make sure this has a good life. And if you just throw it out there and, you know, people, you don't know who's taking it. In fact, I've experienced this. I've rehomed fish. The first time I ever rehomed fish, I actually, I don't think they got treated well. I found that out afterwards, and I felt really bad because I grew these tiny fish from fry and they got a good size, and I wanted to redo a tank, and I was just kind of, it was the first time I'd ever gotten bored, and there was somebody that wanted them, so I'm like, here, take them, and that's fine. And then later I was like, you know, I realized that I don't think they were treated well, and I felt kind of bad because it's like, well, that was my stewardship. You know, not that I want to beat myself up over it. Obviously, somebody else was accepting that stewardship, so you know, it's not my fault. But I could have kept them in a good home here, but instead I let them go. So I don't know. My current plan, I already have this plan in place. I mentioned earlier that I had all the tanks and I numbered them up to 40, but a bunch of them are quarantine tanks and I had them empty. My plan is to not fill them. My plan is to not stop buying fish, but mostly just focus on the tanks that I have. I'm not going to set up very many more. I mean, I guess things happen. If I decide to redo something, I probably will, but my goal going forward is to kind of consolidate. My other goal is to, I want to focus more on display tanks rather than breeding tanks. But I do want to like breed heavily 1 or 2 fish. And I have my James River Aquarium Society shirt on, and I kind of want to maybe do some auctions in the future where I take fish, but I just want to have like a couple fish that I do a really good job at just focusing on those. But I need them to be something cool and something rare, but you know, something that I enjoy breeding. But so I kind of want to shut down a bunch of the like quarantine grow out tanks, because for a while I was breeding a bunch of random stuff, and I, you know, selling it kind of just locally. But I don't know. They're not very popular fish. They're just kind of easier fish to breed. Some of the Africans and electric blue acaras and things like that. I still have like, I think 10 electric blue acaras that are probably about that big, and they're really pretty. I actually don't often list them for sale because I like them too much, and sometimes I keep them. I have a 180 down here that I had like 3 of them in there, and then I didn't want to give up the ones that I had bred, so I put them in there, and I think now there's like 7, which I don't know. They seem to be getting along fine, but that's my problem with breeding fish, is that I like them too much. I have 10 juvenile Ivanacara bimaculatas that have been growing out for a while, and they're good size. I mean, I could sell them at any moment, but I like them too much. And every time I look at them, I'm like, maybe I just want to build a tank with like 10 Ivanacara bimaculatas. Who has that tank, right? I mean, that's kind of a hard fish to get. And I know I'm going to say this and then I'm going to get a message, hey, I'll take some. But I don't know. They're such a beautiful little dwarf cichlid. And the other problem that I have is that the parents are so skittish. If anybody's ever kept that fish, it is extremely skittish, always hiding. And it frustrates me. The babies, on the other hand, they've known me since they were born, since they hatched, and since I saw them as fry. And I mean, I know it sounds like parental, but it's true. Like I put my hand in the tank, and you know they're not afraid of me. So I'm like, man, if I had them all in a tank, then I could actually look at them. But the parents, they're just super skittish. So anyway, so my point is that I kind of do want to consolidate, keep a couple of the breeding tanks, shut down a lot of stuff. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably 8 tanks now that I think I'm going to be shutting down here soon, unless I decide to do some sort of other setup for that breeding project. We'll see. I also have my rainbow fish that I got from Gary Lang that are very, very rare fish. The Kalimaisu is the collection point, and they're like that big now. So those are another one that I think that I want to potentially breed, mostly just because they'd be cool to just get out there. And I have a good number of them, so I could do kind of a breeding project around that. So plus that I got them at that auction, and it was the very first auction I ever did, and it was for those eggs. I'd never done an auction before. If anybody's ever been, like, the rush of holding up your number and like listening to them call off, how much money, and then you're like, oh my gosh, do I have the nerves to to stay on this? Um, can I hold on any longer? But when I won those, it was really cool. But there were, I mean, a couple people around the room that really wanted those fish, and I was like, sorry, I felt kind of bad, but I really, really, really wanted them, and so I got them. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta breed these and bring these back to the auction, like a year from now. Take them back there and be like, hey guys, these are the ones that you guys wanted. Here they are. So that's another one that I'm thinking of breeding, but mostly just because I still feel a little bad about holding out longer for the people that really, really wanted them. So, but yeah, so anyway, that's kind of what I'm looking at doing, kind of consolidating, getting down to more like display tanks and just a handful of breeding projects, and we'll see how that goes. Every time I think I'm going to shut a bunch of stuff down, I come up with a new idea to grow, and but I really think I'm going to stop. Probably, yeah. But just mostly because I'm starting to get worried about if I grow too big and I can't keep up with it. I don't want the fish to suffer. I had something like that happen where when I was doing a bunch of these projects, when I was setting up tanks, I was building, and I was doing a lot of building, and I had one pleco die that. And I don't think there's anything I could have done. I've researched it and tried to figure out what happened. And honestly, my theory is that he like ate a Cory. I don't know, big mouth. And I feel like there's less Corys in that tank. But, and I couldn't find it. And he wasn't like skinny. He was a good sized pleco with a big fat belly, and he just died. So anyway, I have no idea what happened. But my point is, in bringing that up, is I was a little upset because I was like, was I not paying attention because I was spending all this time setting up tanks? And anybody who's done that before, they know, like, you're setting up a bunch of tanks and you're not like necessarily paying as much attention to the ones that you've got. So anyway, that made me feel bad, made me feel like a bad fish keeper. But it's all right. I'll get there. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about today. Unless anybody else has any questions, got a few more minutes before I needed to get off. But anything that you want to see in the future, I also have that fish food video coming. That one's one that's been on my list for a long time, and I promised a long time ago to make that video about my DIY fish food. Going to come at it from a different angle than I expected, but yeah, I'm still making it. I have about half of it made, so have to make that video, but finish making that video. But so anyway, but I'm just grateful to hit this milestone. 1,000 people is pretty cool. Excited for that. So we'll see what we do with that in the future. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys later. Fish is out.